In our next episode of Behind the Boss, we meet Nick Mayhugh. A Paralympic sprint runner and soccer player, Nick represented the United States at the 2020 Summer Paralympics, where he won 3 gold and 1 silver medal. He currently holds 3 Paralympic World Records and 3 American records, and all of this came after beginning a career in soccer and being diagnosed with cerebral palsy at the age of 14. It's time to find out more about Mayhew's remarkable journey from such a young age and what got him to where he is today. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
It's great to be here.
My main question, having, very briefly swung 3 of your gold medals around my neck before we started recording, is how does it feel to be an Olympic gold medalist?
Yeah, honestly, it's indescribable. To be honest, it hasn't hit me. That moment of, such a euphoric, I'm a, world record gold medalist. And that's sort of my family and my friends that have really tried to get on me about it, appreciate this, enjoy it, have fun. And it's just, I'm always looking to what's next. But it's incredible to try to inspire some other people to do what I've done. So it's awesome.
And it was your first ever Paralympics and you went straight for gold.
Yes, sir.
That's brilliant.
It's funny enough. I actually sat down with my coach when I decided I was a footballer at the time, playing soccer for the national team. And I sat down with him, and he had trained with me for a couple of years before. And I sat down with him and I said, hey, I got this opportunity with Team USA. They want me to run track. And he looked back and chuckled at me. And I said, I'm going to, go to Tokyo and I'm going to win a gold medal. Yeah. And he got up and walked out of the room and said,
"Come." Heard from him again.
And said, exactly. He said, "No, you're done. You only play soccer." And he left and said, "Come back tomorrow and tell me again." And so the next day, I walked back into his office, told him to sit down, and I said, "Coach, I'm going to go to Tokyo and I'm going to win a gold medal." Yeah. And I said, "You are going to train me to get there." And he said, "All right, let's get to work."
So he didn't believe in you at first?
No, he did. He had to test me to see if I was really going to commit to it, because he has been working with the Olympic track sprinters for, almost better half of a decade. And so he's got a lot more experience than I do in the sport. And so he understands what it really took. And I didn't understand it at first. And it was a long journey to understand that. And even now, I'm still learning. Just
explain to me that feeling of getting up on the podium and the guys there with a gold medal for you.
Yeah, that was, it's incredible. It's such a speechless moment, because you see, I grew up watching the Olympic events and watching them and hearing your national anthem and just feeling so honored to be able to watch that and to think about what that moment would feel like. And it was incredible to watch, but then to really walk out into the stadium and know that you're about to walk out and receive a gold medal and listen to your national anthem. I cried for sure. It was definitely, and I know more so I was emotional because I knew my brother and my family and everybody were watching me, and I knew that they were crying at home as well. And they couldn't be there obviously because of COVID, and it was bittersweet, but it was such a wow moment. I don't know. I get chills thinking about it.
Yeah, me too. As I said, I've won the medal, so I know
exactly.
How difficult it must have been to
Thank you for
down.
letting me keep them.
I thought I should give them back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you always want to be an athlete? Was that your dream for when you were a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. Ever since I can remember, I always, back in grade school when they would write, what do you dream of when you would be older? And I always wrote an athlete. I always wrote pro footballer. And it was always something that had stuck in my mind. I always knew that I was going to do something in sport. And if I wasn't playing soccer, or if I wasn't running track and field, or if I wasn't a pro athlete, I would have to do something in the sport. I could never see myself sitting at a desk doing anything else.
I just wonder what happened with your transition from sort of able-bodied athletics, thank you, into Paralympian.
Yeah, so my entire life I grew up playing able-bodied sports, and up until I was 14, I had always known that there was something wrong with my left side. There was something off, but it wasn't enough to get other people, doctors, coaches, or teachers, or even my own parents to really believe me enough to see a doctor and then run some tests or order some tests. Because I was so athletic, because I was so competitive, I always wanted to be the best with or without my left side, abled or disabled. So it didn't really matter about the competition. You put me up against somebody, one thing I can't control is my work ethic. And there's nobody in this world that if you're next to me, you will never outwork me. That has carried me my entire way of able-bodied sports. And then, up until I was introduced to the opportunity to compete in the Paralympics and to be able to compete at this level is an honor. But it's the same mindset. It's just a whole different game.
So you went for tests at 14.
Yeah, so it was funny because each physical or something that I would have to do before I would even be able to play sports in, recreational or in middle school or in university or anything, I would have to go in for regular checkups. And I would always tell my doctor, I'd say, I feel, so there's something off. Can we run like an MRI? I would do my own Google search and they were, hey, why is this 12-year-old asking about an MRI? Like, what does he know? Yeah. And I could always know that there was something wrong, but they, I was so athletic and so fast and just so competitive that they never really saw anything. And then it wasn't until I had a grand mal seizure when I was 14 and unfortunately had to be rushed to the hospital that they ordered them there because they needed to. And, come to find out, I have a golf ball sized dead spot on the right side of my brain.
What changed for you when you found that out?
I'll never forget that day. It was the best and the worst day of my life. It was the best because it was more so a sigh of relief. I'd grown up with people not believing me and always telling me no, not really understanding what I had gone through, what I was feeling physically and mentally. And then it wasn't until that point that I really was like, they finally are like understanding and believing me. And it was all the dots started to connect. Like I was given an answer for everything that I had dealt with. Yeah. And then also to then hear my neurologist look at me and tell me that she doesn't think I'll ever be able to play soccer again because they didn't understand the severity of it. And I remember getting up and looking at her and telling her that she was wrong. And I just walked out and we never went back to that neurologist.
Did it change your aspirations? It doesn't sound like it.
No, not at all. But it was in that moment I had a choice to make. It was very hard. I was 14. I was very naive. I was very stubborn, thought I knew it all. And to go from cloud nine of playing for, the DC United Academy at the time and performing so well to then the next day to wake up and have your world flipped upside down and being told you'll never be able to play soccer again. To go from such a high to hitting rock bottom for a 14-year-old, it was the toughest decision I had to face. And it was either I could go down the path of allowing this diagnosis, allowing this sigh of relief and this breath of fresh air to really allow it to overcome everything that I had gone through. And I would be able to use it sort of as a sympathy card or, or I can't do this or I couldn't go pro because, I was diagnosed with this. It was sort of the easy way out. Or I could put it under the bed and, tuck it under, dunk it down and prove that I was always able to do what I've always set out to do with or without my left side.
So what were your next steps after that?
So I actually, I was bouncing from team to team and just trying to figure out, because at the time I was being recruited by Division I universities. I was given opportunities of, the American way of going through football. And really the only way that you can here in the US is through the academy, then through university, and then you go pro. And I was stripped of that. Any university that was recruiting me at the time, dropped me because they found out about my medical diagnosis and they didn't want to take a chance, which was fine with me. I understood it's a business of sort. And I actually was bouncing from team to team, driving upwards to 2 hours, 4 days a week just to train for an hour, just to then drive home, just to try to get seen. And there was one coach that took a chance on me, allowed me to come in and as a walk-on and, prove myself. And I told him, I was like, I don't need a scholarship. I don't need anything from you. I just need a coach. I need an opportunity and I'll prove you right. I'll make sure that you made the right decision. And then I spent the next 4 years of my life just doing what I do and proving people wrong and proving myself right.
When you went to the Olympics, it wasn't in soccer. So what happened?
So I joined the national team in 2017. I was a junior in college at the time, playing football for the national team. And unfortunately, the Paralympics had cut soccer from the program because there was no female counterpart. So they actually brought in 2 more sports, one male and one female of the same sport, and rightfully so. And so actually Team USA had seen me compete that past summer at the Pan American Games down in Peru. And the coaches of Team USA track and field actually called me and they said, hey, we saw you play and, you're pretty fast and, we don't have a lot of males in your classification. Would you be interested in trying to run track? And I said, I've always run track growing up to stay fit for football, but it was always distance. I ran the 800 and ran the mile and things that make me want to throw up now. Make me sick to my stomach. But I said, why not? So then I went down for trials and ran a lot better than I thought I did. And then, committed to the next 2 years of my life, training 10 hours a day, 6 days a week to get to Tokyo.
But wait, you don't just pivot to track and field, do you? What?
No.
You don't just spend 10 hours a day training.
That's what I had thought. Because a lot of people think, it's running. Initially, that's what I thought. I as soon as Team USA called me, I called my brother. He's my best friend, one of my coaches. And I called him and I said, hey, we got this opportunity with track. We're going to go to Tokyo. We're going to do this. And he laughed and he's like, you don't get it. And I said, what? I said, you're fast on, he told me you're fast on the field, but that doesn't correlate to the track. They're two different running mechanics. They're two different sports. There's two different respects of those two worlds. And at the time I didn't understand. And that it wasn't until I started to train for track and field that I understood what he meant.
What's the difference?
I actually had to completely relearn how to run.
Yeah.
Every running mechanic, everything, because soccer is a 360 rotational sport. You have to be ready to move in any direction at any time. So in track, it's just a linear straight go. There's one little curve of the 200, two curves in the 400, one lap on the track. And so it was funny to really kind of think about that. And then when I was put to the test of it, of getting me on the track and just timing me or understanding my running mechanics and really looking at them, running out of the blocks.
Yeah.
I have never felt as uncomfortable as I did when I had gotten into the blocks for the first time. And that initial experience of trying to relearn how to run, have my coach dissect my footage and have me sit there and look at what I thought was me running fast. It looked good. I got out, I ran this. He's like, okay, you're going to look at this back. And if I tell you, if I were to pull up my phone and show you videos of me running back in November of 2019, I would get sick to my stomach. I can't even look at
I'd see a
them.
Footballer, right?
Yeah.
I
would see that's the thing. I'm glad that you said that because at that point, I was a footballer trying to run track.
Yeah.
And I sit before you today as a track athlete, and the time it took to get here was incredible. And it was just the most grueling, hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life.
Yeah, just reprogramming. I just think about competing at the Olympics. How do you stay motivated for the whole time of being there?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I had to recruit a small team. I'm a homebody. I'm very big in visualization, meditation, really just pushing everything forward and trying to put pieces in place before they happen, manifesting everything. And the first thing I did from that first sit down that I had with my coach to telling him that, when I got back home, I wrote down the world record times of each race I was going to run in and put them up on each wall of my house, my bedroom, my kitchen, my living room, the front entrance hallway, everything. So it would be the first thing I saw when I woke up and the last thing I saw when I went to bed. It really just ingrained it in my head. And so training for it, I really understood that I was going to do this. There was no, I see this every day. I think about it. And it was the times that I was going to run. And it's funny because in the 2.5 years that I trained, my coach did not time me once. He wouldn't allow me to time myself. Yeah. It was an ego thing. I wanted to know, where I was at benchmark. And he said, well, if you understand your time, then you're either going to see your time and be happy with it and then not train as hard, not be as motivated, or you're going to not run as fast as you want and then be upset, and it's going to change your mindset. It's going to change your training. It was really just trying to keep those people that I knew that they wanted what was best for me in my career and what I had to do to get there. Training those 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. And kudos to my brother who was with me the entire way. There were so many days that I woke up at 6 a.m. and didn't want to roll out of bed or second guess myself and thought, I'm a footballer. I can't do this. I'm not fast enough out of the blocks. I can't fix that cue. And there was things that I would get down on myself, and he would be right there banging on my door at 6:30, telling me to get up, that we needed to get to the track, get to the gym, to finish that rep. And he was on the track with me every day. So, and then obviously being in Tokyo, not having that, I had worked with a hypnotherapist, my coach and a therapist, my brother, and just waking up and talking to them and really allowing myself to develop into that mindset of I'm here for this purpose. And it's what I set out to do the first day. And the desire that I had that first day is the same thing that I feel in this day on the race of my 100 final, the 200 final, 400 and the 4x1. It was those same feelings. And funny enough, with my hypnotherapist, I don't know if she wants me to share this, but I think she'd be proud, as I would speak to her and we would run through it. Run through the race, and I would have to tell her how I thought the race would go and how I was thinking about it. And every time I would cross that finish line, she said, "What do you see?" And each time that I said was the time that I ran in Tokyo.
No.
Yeah.
That's magical.
It was incredible. So it was the discipline. I think that was the biggest thing, was that you really have to commit to it. And there's really something in my brain that just is a little bit insane and a little bit of insanity. But I think each person, if they want to be successful, no matter what it is that you do in athletics or in anything else, it's just a little bit of a tick, a little bit of insanity that keeps you on track of what you need to do. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think, because there's something about being good at something physically, and then there's your level, the next level.
Yeah. I mean, it's as simple as that. There's no secret. It's just the consistency and the discipline to doing what you have to do to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
There is no secret.
But especially to have pivoted from something you were already good at.
But I wasn't good at it. I wasn't.
Right. Okay.
You know, I wasn't good. I was good at running, but I wasn't good at track and field. There's two different worlds, you know? So, and it really broke me down. And funny enough, the first 6 months of my training, my coach wouldn't even work with me. We would go to the track together, just him and I, and he would have the track blocks that you start out of, and he would throw them on the track and say, teach yourself how to do this. You're not even worth my time. He's like, you're a footballer. And he would make me sit there and I would type in Usain Bolt track start, Usain Bolt block start, fastest block start. Yeah. And I would watch these athletes and their cues and what they did to get out of the blocks. And I would sit there on the track with my blocks and put them in different positions and just trial and error. Yeah. And he would be sitting there on his phone, you know, on Instagram, messaging people, liking photos, watching TikTok videos. And then he'd look up and say, no. And I look at him and he wouldn't coach me until one day he finally looked up and he said, let's get to work. Yeah. You're ready.
That's so, I mean, obviously it's a psychological game, coaching rather than like telling you what to do. Yeah. But there's also this like, you have to believe in it so wholeheartedly for it to ever get out of the block.
I didn't understand how much I had to commit to it. That was the biggest change for me, and the biggest thing that I did not realize was how much I would have to commit to it. And one of the most critical moments for him and for me as an athlete to be coached by him was we actually sat in his gym, and he was holding a conference at the time with coaches and doctors, scientists that he would work with was in sport. Yeah. And he brought them all in a room. He said, and he stopped me in the middle of my workout, you know, drenched in sweat, have no shirt on, just the athlete mode. And he brought me in, he said, put your shirt on, sit down, and at the head of the table. And I was surrounded with the 1% of the 1% in what they do, you know, scientists and coaches. And he sat at the other end and he said, this is Nick. He's a footballer. He wants to go and run track and field. And he told them everything, that I wanted to go to Tokyo and do everything. And he said, and some of them smirked and laughed and they understood. And he said, what I want you to do before we get started and before I let Nick speak, he said, I want every single coach, every person to go around this table and tell Nick a reason why he will fail. And each person, it was just like a dagger. And you know, you're too short. You know, your technique is too sloppy, or you're a soccer player. There's not enough time. He's like, you're not committed enough. You won't do this. And it was just like a punch and a punch, but it unlocked something in me. And he brought me to his office afterwards and he said, that wasn't for you, and that wasn't for them, and it wasn't for anybody else but for me. He said, now I know as a coach what I have to do to get you ready to be on that podium, to get what you want.
How did it feel the next day when you went out to train?
I had never run that fast. I bet you I ran faster than I did in Tokyo. Yeah. You know, and it was the little things that I had to do. Being in there 30 minutes before anyone else was there, the coach was there, anybody else, or just the little things that I had to do that the day before he had to cue me on, I was just on top of it. And those little disciplines, those little consistencies, the little things that athletes and people don't want to do because they think that it's not worth it. It's not worth your time. But it's those things that add on to then lead you to the bigger things that when you get into Tokyo and then you realize you've transformed into this person that without those little things you wouldn't be where you are.
Interesting. What was it like arriving in Tokyo?
It didn't feel real because it's funny because no pun intended, but I didn't have any traction in the track world when I got there. You know, nobody really knew who I was. I was Nick Mayhugh, a footballer trying to run track, or like this guy who thinks he's going to do this. I held the 200 American record. I had broken the 100 world record before. So I had a little bit of,
something.
I had a little bit of confidence going into it, but on the world stage.
I break a world record en route. Right. Gotcha.
In getting there, it really, when I walked into the stadium for the first time and saw everything, it became real. I understood that I knew that I was ready to do what I had set out to do. And it really just allowed me to hone in and focus. But there were no fans. My family wasn't there. My brother wasn't there. It was nobody. It was just me. Yeah, there was nothing.
Crazy.
There was nobody but the media, the coaches, and, the officials and the other athletes.
Yeah, maybe that's part of all of that noise. I wonder how helpful it is.
Well, for me, I think ignorance was bliss in this certain situation. Yeah. It's funny because a lot of athletes were frustrated that, it got postponed. I have to train for another year. And it really messed up their training schedule. Yeah. But for me, I was, hey, I got an extra year,
just got here from the pitch.
Let's go. I have an extra year to get ready, and allowed me to really hone in and really focus on what I wanted to do, and allowed me to get better. And then all the races that I ran in prepping for Tokyo, or the training sessions I had, there was nobody in the stands. There wasn't anybody allowed to be there because of COVID. So getting to Tokyo, it was really my element, because I had been through that. That was what I was used to as a track athlete. So then getting there, it was sort of, it worked for me. I love that pressure when the bright lights are on, and I walk in there, I can hear the camera shuttering, I can hear the people talking, talking trash, and we're doing all these things. That's what I'm used to. That's where I shine. Pressure makes diamonds, and I just
very true. It makes gold medals and a silver one. I went to the Olympics, to the men's trampolining, and it was completely silent, but as they hit the top of the bounce, you could just hear the shutters going.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in a massive football stadium.
And that's the funniest thing, because as I was running, I blacked out. It's funny enough, I actually don't remember a single race that I ran in. As soon as I walk out, I can hear the camera shuttering, and that's the last thing I heard. That's the last thing I hear. I don't register it. It just becomes, uniform. It becomes just natural at that point, second nature. I become like a robot. But there's actually no race that I ran there in Tokyo that I remember, because I was so focused and so narrow tunneled.
Surely that is part of the success of it, that you're not like, oh, I feel a bit something.
You're
just like, I'm here to.
Exactly. The announcers and people that I spoke to before, it was funny enough that I was able to talk to them, and he said, "You feel good? How are you?" And we'd have a conversation behind the scenes, and I was like, "I'm good, but I'm going to go break the world record."
Yeah.
And he said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You broke it before." And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go break it in the prelim. And I'm going to go break it in the final." And he said, that's big. And then after, as I'm running through the finish line, there was one race, and I think it was the 100, that I was looking at the clock as I was running past it. And then as soon as I looked at him, and as I'm running, I was looking at him. I said, I told you.
God, that's amazing. What did he say? Nothing.
Oh no, he was just sort of, here's to say, you did tell me you did. He had to be professional in that moment, And then after the cameras cut off, we had our own conversation. So I'll let that.
What have you learned from the Paralympic community?
I mean, do you have enough time?
Yes, I've got all the time.
It's unbelievable, because I was unaware of the Paralympic world, of Paralympic sports, until I was 21 years old. And that's one of the things I'm very passionate about now, is hoping and to get this message out, to educate other athletes, other parents and children that go through what I went through as a child. My goal is to hopefully inspire a generation to learn about the Paralympics, so that they don't have to go through that same experience that I had to go through, to wait 14 years to be diagnosed, to then go 21 years not knowing that there was an entire world that will accept you, that will celebrate you, that you can feel comfortable in, that there are people just like you, depending on your severity of that, know exactly what you're going through, that you can compete and excel in. And so that's the biggest thing that I've learned, that the other sports and, the stories that people have to go through and experience, and just everything behind the scenes of what really goes into the sport of disabled athletics is incredible. And it's such an ever-changing, selfless act of understanding of the entire world. It's unbelievable, and the most incredible thing I've been able to be a part of.
I know you've won awards. Were there other times when you truly felt that you had made it before the Paralympics?
I don't think that I have.
No. Oh,
and that's
not done.
No, not even a little bit. We have Paris in 3 years. I'm going to do the same thing I'm going to do that I did in Tokyo, but win 4 golds, not just 3. And do that. And then, then we have LA in 28. So I'm always trying to think of what's next. So it's just sort of, when I'm all said and done, I might have that moment. But right now, I will never allow myself to say that I've made it, regardless of what I'm doing.
Looking back, are there any kind of figures that have had a life-changing impact on your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think my brother is the first one that comes to mind. He's my best friend. He's the one that's been there the entire way. Ever since I was little, I've always looked up to him, and no matter if I wanted to admit it or not, I always wanted to be like him. Yes. And no matter what he was doing.
He used to do soccer, right?
Yeah, he was
5 years older.
Yeah, he's actually the one that got me into soccer. Growing up and him playing sports first, and him playing soccer and excelling and being, such a good athlete in football is something that I wanted to do. So I would go out and compete with him and want to be just like him, So he's such a focal point for me, but also my coach, my training partners, Jason Rogers, who's a Olympic sprinter for St. Kitts, and I was able to train with him and learn from him, and he's been running track his whole life. And I definitely owe my journey to some people. But at the end of the day, when I lay in bed and get up, it's just myself. And so, you know, I really look in the mirror, and that's my only competition. That's the person that I have to really just stick with every single day. And it was really hard at some points. I didn't like the person that I had seen in the mirror for the longest time on that journey.
Yeah.
I wasn't there yet. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't technical enough.
Yeah.
I definitely owe a lot of things to a lot of people, you know, the people that I work with behind the scenes that unfortunately don't get the credit I think that they deserve. But, you know, I definitely make sure to let them know how much I appreciate them.
Yeah. Does anything like fun or funny happen on your journey while you're training?
I fall a lot. That was the biggest thing, because I wasn't used to wearing the track spikes. I had to get used to the track spikes that I was wearing, you know, getting out of the blocks or putting my hands in certain positions and having the certain angles as I get out of the blocks. And an often cue is to stay low. And so I'll get out super low and trip on my feet and face plant onto the track and stuff. But, you know, that's a part of the process, you know, that's sort of an initiation to the whole sport of track and field. So it was funny that I didn't understand the sport of track and field and what really went into it, you know, their traditions and everything that went into it. So and when I got to Tokyo, some of my teammates had some fun with me because I had never worn a track singlet before. I had never worn, you know, I'd wore compression shorts and such, but I'd never worn, you know, a singlet and things. So people would, some of my teammates would make jokes of like what I should wear and shouldn't wear and you know, certain things and certain sizes and stuff. And I'd get out there and they would make fun of me and send me things because I would be, you know, I looked sort of out of place, you know?
Yeah.
But it was funny to let them have their fun with it.
Did changing the outfits and stuff like change how you ran?
Actually, yeah. Because I wore my compression singlet for 3 out of my 4 races, and the only race that I didn't wear that was the 400. The 400. That's the only one. But funny enough, so I actually, before I left for Tokyo, my dad gave me a gold chain that my mom had given him when they were married. And he said that he wanted me to wear it in Tokyo. And I told him that I would and wear it throughout my races because I had already worn a chain when I raced. Yeah. But funny enough, every race that I had run in, I had a compression and would tuck my chain into my singlet. Yeah. But for my 400, I wore a looser tank top. Yeah. And as soon as I got out of the blocks and got up, my chain got stuck to the bridge of my nose. Yeah. And I ran the entire 400 with a chain stuck to the bridge of my, because I couldn't, as I was running, I couldn't slip it. I couldn't, like I would change my gait and I would mess up and, you know, and so that, not to say that that's why I lost.
No.
You know, no.
No, but it's interesting.
But it's funny that
the tiniest calibration to get you around that track.
Yeah. And as soon as I got back to my phone, my coach had texted me. He said, "Your chain got stuck to your nose, didn't it?" And I said, "How'd you know?" Because you can't see that on the screen. Yeah. And I said, "How'd you know?" And he said, my running form was entirely different. Yeah. So it's funny enough to say that, you know, on the one race that I had won a silver, my chain had gotten stuck.
Silver's not too shabby.
Oh, no, not at all.
But also, I think it's interesting. Do you have like superstitions, stuff you always have to do or not do?
Actually, in track and field, my coach had told me of Japanese culture. They said that it's good luck to put your left shoe before your right. And to tie your shoe like that.
That would really mess with my day if I did it that way around.
So the day before I left, he told me that. And so he said, as soon as you step foot in that country, he said, every single day from then on, you need to put your left foot, your left sandal, anything you wear, your left sock, anything. It needs to be your left before your right. And funny enough, hours before my race, he called me. He said, before this one, this is the biggest one. It's going to be your toughest race. He was like, make sure you do it. And he was just on me about it. So that's something funny. But
wait. Do you still do left shoe first?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, because it works.
Yeah, I have to.
Once you're in the zone of like this works.
No, I have to. And ever since
is it real? Is it not? It works.
Yeah. Now it does. So now every track meet, everything is sort of, I get in that mode of being there back in Tokyo. Yeah. And I have to put my left boot on before my right.
So you talked a bit about your running singlet in Tokyo. Mm-hmm. What are the other kind of connections between like sport and style?
I always tried to bring my own sort of swagger or style to any sport that I'm playing or anything that I really do. In soccer, you know, I had the certain things that I would do, but in track and field, I really looked up to somebody like Usain Bolt. You know, the style and swag that he had, it was really just captivating. People would turn on the TV to watch him be him. You know, I've tried to bring that back to track and field. The one thing I always do is a haircut of mine. I always try to do something different with my hair. Yeah. So when I went to Tokyo, I actually got a certain cut and I had USA shaved in the back of my head, but I had a lightning bolt as the S in the USA.
Very good.
So just keep in touch and stay tuned to see what I do for Paris.
Yeah.
I'll be wearing different cleats in Paris. I'm definitely going to make those a focal point, but my hair will be too.
Just tell me, what 3 words do you believe are the traits that you need to be a good boss?
The first 3 that come to me is 1, instinct.
Yeah.
2, discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I say 3 would be respect.
I
think you would have to have the instinct of being a boss, of being at that level of what you want to do and be as successful as you want to be no matter what you want to do.
Yeah.
The discipline to do it, the little things that correlate to then ending up becoming one big thing that it is you want to do. And then the respect of no matter what it is you're doing and who you're working with. You know, going into track, I didn't have the initial respect to the sport of track and field.
Yeah.
And it humbled me very quickly. And I then, you know, developed and understood and had the respect of track and field. And no matter what it is I was doing and the people and the athletes that have trained for this their entire life, I now was a part of that. And I had to develop and understand that sort of respect for them.
My last question, what's next?
More gold medals.
I will look after the silver one if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That's definitely, you know, I definitely want to see how far I can go. You know, I'm obsessed with it wholeheartedly and just truthfully. I'm obsessed with the sport of track and field. And more importantly, I'm obsessed with pushing myself mentally and physically to see how far I can really go.
Yeah.
And no matter what it is I do, and whether that's in track and field or, you know, in any other venture I go in, or maybe even another sport that might be a surprise in the near future. So
another pivot, which you will surely take in your stride.
There'll be another pivot. I'll give you that, but I won't tell you what it is.
Great. Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Boss with your host. That's me, Raven Smith. If you want to find out more about what it takes to be a boss and the stories behind the inspirational figures of today, new episodes of this podcast are out every 2 weeks. Make sure to tune in.